Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it, and I promise to update daily. If you love this watch, you can see it and you can purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing a little giant in the truest sense. Launched in 1994, this watch was a flagship in its day, the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin 34, a watch I love so much I've owned it. A timepiece so elegant it recalls the heyday of mid-century Swiss men's dress watches from Vacheron, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet, and indeed, the underlying movement architecture is based on a caliber that Jaeger-LeCoultre developed for AP and Vacheron during the early to mid-1950s. I'll also mention that this watch is one of the most accessible points of entry to true high horology, handmade, hand-finished, hand-regulated watches. On my 16cm circumference wrist, the timepiece is 34mm in diameter and razor slim, 6mm thick with knife edges. Because the case back is cupped, it actually sinks into the wrist once you've sized it. It doesn't look 6mm thick. That's already thin enough. It looks more like 3 or 4mm thick. Lug-to-lug, very traditional, 39.8mm with a 17mm spacing between the lugs. The watch wears well, and again, if you're into traditional dress watches, this is the one that's going to catch your eye and steal your heart. The strap is made in the image of the watch, ultra thin, unbolstered. You can see semi-gloss black alligator leather, sheer sides, monotone stitch, calfskin on the underside. It is a French-made Camille Fournet strap. Camille Fournet is the OEM supplier for JLC factory straps. You wouldn't expect to see a full clasp on this watch if it were an entry-level piece, but it is not an entry-level piece. Polished, and you can see internally blasted. This is JLC's second-generation deployant clasp and the most substantial that it's built to date. The timepiece, very slim in profile, but not without nuance. You can see that the case is knife-like. The bezel is conical and almost flat. The lugs are surprisingly complex. They flare as they move away from the midcase, and you can see there's a little bit of a transitional swelling bevel that separates the lug hood from the lug flank. On the crown side, the crown is truly minimal, domed in profile with the JLC logo and a minimalist but sharp knurling that's easy to grip. You can see the case has been almost shrink wrapped around the stem tube assembly. Now, the case is all of high polished steel, but if ever high polish were welcome, this is the occasion. The watch doesn't look garish at all. It looks graceful. It's also a wonderful budget alternative to the near doppelganger Vacheron Constantin Historique 1955 Extra Plat, a watch that's almost exactly the same size with a movement that's related to the JLC caliber. The dial, like everything else about the watch, is more deluxe than you imagine. A silver sunburst, you have all applique hour indices, dart style faceted, diamond polished, and hand applied. The same goes for the quarter Arabics at 12, 3, 6, and 9. The hands at center are Dauphine style, and as you can see, they're faceted for greater contrast against the base. 2 hands, all you need. Manual wind, 36-hour power reserve. The watch, shockingly, has a real-world water resistance of 50 meters. And in fact, the way the case is assembled, it's almost like a sandwich with the screws in the case back cinching the whole thing together. They actually thread into the bezel. That's how this watch, which by rights should have 20 meters to 0 meters of water resistance, manages the same water resistance as a standard master control. Let's get the focus here, get as close as we can, give ourselves some more light. Caliber 849, launched in 1994. Its basic architecture dates back to the 802 Abauche. Built for Audemars Piguet and Vacheron, launched by AP in 1953 and Vacheron for its 1955 Jubilee. That was actually the 200th anniversary of Vacheron, and at the time, Jaeger-LeCoultre was an administrator and controlling interest in Vacheron, so it's no wonder that there was some crossover DNA. Now, this movement here is 1.85mm thick, and it's built by Jaeger-LeCoultre's specialty horloger shop, the people who make the minute repeaters, the grand complications, the perpetual calendars, and the duomet. They make this movement. It is that thin and that delicate. Not only do they make it, most brands would be happy simply to put the thing together so it runs reliably. They'd be happy with 30 seconds of variation a day. This actually went through the Master 1000 Hours control. Not just a test of chronometric precision, but of power reserve, of water resistance, and long-term stability. Not 2 weeks like the COSC, over 40 days. And it has some mechanical upgrades compared to its Vacheron counterpart. The Vacheron in the 1955 beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour. This one beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour. 19 joules. It has only about 120 parts, but all of them are beautifully finished, and I can't overemphasize, this is a hand-finished movement. The anglage is mirrored. It is a true hand-finished, optically smooth bevel, and you can begin to see the edges of the bridge light up. Also, the jewel and screw countersinks have the same treatment. This is the real deal, not a machined chamfer. You'll also appreciate the fact that the screws are alternately black polished and blued, heat blued, fired in a kiln and oxidized blue, not chemically dyed. The regulator on top of the balance, the micrometric regulator, is black polished, and there's a handsome satin finish on both the crown wheel and the ratchet wheel. The click, a small component that prevents the barrel's ratchet wheel from running backward, features both satin on its top and a mirrored chamfer around its edges. The attention to detail is outstanding. Only a 36-hour power reserve, but I'm sure you won't mind interacting with this extraordinary movement on a daily basis. Look again at the attention to detail. They've even added shock protection on the staff for the escape wheel. This is a real-world, everyday wearable ultra-thin watch made by the same people and tuned by the same people who make the JLC Grand Complications, and for good reason. This is in its way a grand complication in its own right. The thinner you get, the more you have to consider it on par with a grand comp. Less is more. See it and make it yours on the Watchbox.